Well, this summer I kind of let the ball slip with the studying French thing. Summer before last, I had done my Duolingo app studying my French during my break, every break. I didn't do that this year. I just kind of played around on my phone instead of in texting instead of studying my French. So my French has really slipped this summer, but I'm going to try to get back on top of that. One of my favorite ways to work on my French is to use my Duolingo app. You can use Duolingo.com without having the app, but you can also download a Duolingo app, and I'd really recommend it. It's really useful. You can pay for I think it's called Duolingo Deluxe or Duolingo Plus, or you can do the basic free Duolingo. I do the basic just free Duolingo. I don't pay anything for it. And then I also like using YouTube to listen to French songs. Some people that are bilingual or know multiple languages said that watching TV shows really helped them a lot. So every once in a while I would watch a movie in French here and there, especially movies I was very familiar with, like old Disney films that I watched as a kid or something. So which a lot of Disney films in particular, I don't know about other types of kids shows, but I know Disney films have language options that French is often listed as an included language on it. So I'd recommend that. I also recently decided that it's probably a good idea to start trying to learn some sign language. I just know very, very, very basic sign language. In fact, I barely know basic sign language. I just know a couple of things. So since I'm going to be going into special education, and it's very likely that I'll be working with some students in the future that will need to know sign language, then it's really important for me to learn that. I'm actually kind of surprised that sign language isn't a required class for a special education major. That would make sense to have that as a requirement. That and probably Spanish too, because a lot of English learners will probably need some assistance and helps from a special educator. So those are two things that I should probably start looking into. Mostly I want to learn French because someday I want to move overseas and live somewhere in Africa, and that's one of the main languages there. There are many other languages, but I don't know how to start learning about those, like some of the other language there. I don't know how to start learning those, so, which I could probably start trying really hard to look into that some more. But I was really impressed by a couple of people I met in Mexico whenever I was on my mission trip several years ago, that they said that they watched a lot of English on Netflix, and they studied a lot. They actually, for a while, their Sunday school class time was set aside to try to practice speaking English with each other so that they'd be ready for whenever we came to visit. So I was really impressed by that they valued and put so much time and effort into trying to learn as much English as they could before we arrived. And I told them my Spanish isn't very good, and one person said, "Oh, well, why didn't you do your homework? You knew you were coming." So I can't remember since it's several years ago, but I do think I did brush up a little bit on my Spanish before that trip, but not nearly to the extent that the people who were anticipating our coming were. So I think that is something very valuable that a lot of churches should consider, is taking some time in their classes to try to incorporate things like sign language and Spanish. I try to every once in a while include a little bit of Spanish or a little bit of sign language into my Sunday school lessons and teach kids some phrases that they can use. So French is my biggest thing right now, and then also some sign language, which I'm kind of learning along with my students too. One of my best ways to learn something is through trying to teach it. Usually, if I want to teach somebody something, then I'll start studying it really hard before teaching them. So that's a very good approach to learning for me is learning along with students in teaching. Sometimes that's how we did homeschooling a little bit, where my mom would find a subject that I was kind of good at, and I would work with my sister on it. We did that with Latin at one point. I was in high school still, and my sister was still in middle school, I think. Either that or she was really young high school. And I taught her a Latin class, which I had not had Latin prior to that, but I was learning while teaching her. So I think it's a really fun approach to get to learn things as you're teaching it, which is one of the things that I'm really looking forward to about becoming a teacher, because as I prepare lessons and stuff like that, I'll be also learning as I go along. Kind of back to that Phil Collins quote from Tarzan, "In learning you will teach, and in teaching you will learn." So, yep, those are kind of some of my future language goals. There's a lot of ways to learn a new language, and it can be a little daunting because you can study for years and years and still not be fluent, although there are some people very, very gifted that they just study a couple of months and they seem to carry on fluently very well. I'm not one of those people. I have never reached fluency in a second language, which I'm hoping that with steadily working on my French that I'll eventually get there. But there's video games and games that you can use to try to learn new languages. When I was a child, I used a My Chinese Coach DS game. So games, songs, videos, knowing people and asking them questions about their languages and things like that. There are so many ways to introduce yourself to new languages, and it's a really fun thing to do. So I really recommend, just even if it's just for the fun of it, trying to learn a new language.